Okay, we're back with more Feature Bootcamp. This is week one. Maybe you were here last week for our class on writing slasher movies, and so this week maybe you've applied some of that feedback that you got on your idea, and you're ready to pitch it to us and tell us about your awesome new concept you've come up with. Otherwise, we are looking at this idea of story foundations today. So we are going from logline to outline, or at least those first couple story beats that will just help orient you, and they can act as those supporting pieces of architecture that will help support the rest of your movie. Okay, so let's skip past a bunch of these early slides. So we're going to get going with just a couple ground rules for the boot camp. I'm going to introduce these just to give you all something to be thinking about and to help shape the ideas that you're coming up with. And then we're going to go right into our slasher pitches. So if you've got one, I'll be calling on you in just a minute so you can get your materials ready if you have notes or something like that. But so be preparing, and then let us know in the text chat if you've got something to pitch us and tell us about, or maybe some new idea that you'd like to pitch now for the first time. That's fine too. In any case, let me just give you some very basic rules about picking boot camp ideas. So we really recommend getting used to the idea of sharing even these early outline materials, though it is hard for some to adjust to this idea of sharing your early work, like because it's not done, it's not finished. You don't want to get feedback on unfinished work and things like this, and it makes sense. But at the same time, outlining is part of the thing that you're trying to work on, and as part of getting better at screenwriting, you must first get better at outlining. And in order to improve at outlining, it is easiest if you share your outlines. I guess that's pretty clear now that I say it like that. But in any case, I just mean to say, don't be embarrassed that your outlines aren't done or aren't good enough or don't measure up or whatever it is. Just get used to the idea of even early, like get used to saying, okay, here's a dumb idea. Here's a pitch. Like your ideas shouldn't be too precious. Start trying to approach this as trying to become a generator of unlimited ideas as opposed to trying to, you have like your carefully guarded little treasures and secrets. So beyond that, we just recommend that you, after this week's class, you don't have to right now, but if you're sticking around for the boot camp, then you just use your real name, because we in the industry we are using our real names for the most part, unless you have a stage name or something, which is why you can use a nickname if you want. In any case, we can change your Discord username for you, but you can also just do it yourself. So we recommend you picking a brand new idea or a major rewrite, not some idea you've been picking at for years or some masterpiece that you've had hidden in the bottom drawer of your desk that you feel that if you don't get it just right, then you will dishonor the ghost of your father. Like, you really want to get better at writing movies, and to do that, you have to write a lot of movies. The good ones, the bad, and the ugly, dare I say. Do I hear somebody's mic open? Please make sure you have your mics on mute, or I will server mute you. IB, I think it's you.
What?
Would you mind muting your mic? I'm hearing
Sorry.
some sounds. Thank you. All right. So here's some other tips and suggestions. Don't do time travel. Just believe me. We never, in just about 3 years of doing these boot camps and classes, there has not been one single time travel script completed ever. Don't take that as a challenge. Just take that as my kindly advice to you. Don't do it. Probably don't do a historical unless you already started your research before. Like, I wouldn't start researching a historical because you, just in that limited time span, just don't have all the extra, leeway to gather information about the time period and the important historical figures involved if you're basing it on true stories. Just don't do anything that is going to require a lot of research. Or a really complicated structure with different parallel universes, montages, flashbacks, like these, forget the montage thing for now, but just in terms of flashbacks, if you have your movie taking place in 8 different timelines, if you have a multiverse of madness that the characters are leaping between everything everywhere all at once style, those are probably going to be really tricky to complete. Scripts that you've just set yourself up for extra work right off the bat. Scripts with really limited constraints as well. So, as we've seen in some projects recently, the more rules that you have that govern what your character can't do, then it can help you in some ways, but it can also make writing trickier. So I would just be careful. Like, you do want to pick a more constrained idea if you can, but just be aware that, like, too many constraints can also limit the choices that you feel you will be able to make. It just requires you to be even more creative. But that said, totally fine to pick a smaller, more contained idea. Or something big and crazy if you want. Just don't do time travel. How about some mashup of concepts you've just thought of in the past before or thought would be cool? I don't know. What if we did a heist with aliens? Have we done that before? Is there an alien heist movie? Are we stealing an alien? Do we have to do a heist with a group of aliens, perhaps, each with different powers? And oh wait, I'm just writing Guardians of the Galaxy, I guess. Okay, yes, that's been done. But in any case, you can pick two things and mash them up however you want. What about a courtroom drama meets a survival thriller? Okay, how could that possibly make any sense? If we're in the wilderness, then why is there a courtroom? You know, it forces you to come up with crazy connections and ideas. And it's just a good way to come up with something that will keep you entertained and engaged and interested for the 8 weeks that it takes to write a draft. And that's about how long you should be giving yourself, between 8 and 12 weeks for a first draft, with 12 at the upper end.
Isn't a survival courtroom drama just Lord of the Flies?
I guess there are portions of Lord of the Flies where they take on a sort of court-like structure. Very true. All right, so I would create your sketchbooks now if you've not already done this. So you want to open Google Docs and make a new doc. Just call it blank name of your movie sketchbook. And at the top, include just fields for title, genre, logline, and comps. And you're going to fill those out by the end of today if you've not already done that. You can just be including all of your rough, unsorted ideas in the sketchbook. There's no real format for this. Just include your a list of characters and their ages and what they want and what's standing in the way. What is the world that they live in like? What are the rules that govern the world? Is this a different world than ours, or is it set at a different period of time in ours? You're going to want to include pictures and links and videos and articles and whatever you need just to build out the information that you're going to need to draw on as you continue to outline. This is the first and most basic of your pre-writing documents. Okay, once you have your sketchbook all ready and made, then I would just always have it open and be writing down questions you have, the answers or possible answers to these different questions here, title, genre, logline, and comps being the most essential of them. But I would just continue to have this, be working on this in another tab on one or multiple different ideas during these classes rather than just playing Minecraft the whole time. Like, it's okay if you play Minecraft sometimes, but I would also be filling out your sketchbook as you can. So let me pause for questions, and I'll leave it just on this little overview so you can look at what the weeks ahead have coming up. And let me ask for any questions so far before I open to the pitches on Slasher Movies to see if anybody has one. So, any questions so far? Okay, if there's no questions so far, then we will just jump right in. Who has a slasher pitch? Let us know in the chat, the text chat. Just say the title of the movie and the logline if you have it. I see one from IB, thank you. Anyone else, please feel free to post now. Oh, we have a question from Lenny. Go ahead, Lenny. How do you fill out the sketchbook? I'm new to this. Okay, so let me just give you the first couple things to put at the very top. Title, genre, logline, and comps. And there's going to be a lot of other stuff that can go into your sketchbook too later down the line, but these are just the first things to write down at the very top. So I'll answer this question, what's a logline, in just a second. So title, you know what that is. And for genre, you're going to just pick 2 things at the absolute most. So don't pick like 9 different things. Like, you don't have to include comedy just because the movie's funny. Try to narrow it, put down, and boil it down to just sci-fi, action, or, romance, comedy, whatever it is. Just 2 things, or 1 is fine. And then next we have your logline, which is one single sentence that expresses what is this story about. And pretty soon, after we do the pitches, we'll get more into the mechanics of what goes into a logline, but I'll just give you just the preview of it. It's basically like, when inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict before stakes. So it requires you to sort of solve some problems and know like what's at stake in the story, who's the main character, what do they want. We're in a really like main character centric format of storytelling here. So I'll leave that up for just a second if you want to take a look at that or ask another question about it, but we're going to go into more logline details soon. And thank you, Mario, who just mentioned in the chat, if you type !logline into any of our text channels, then it will bring up a little macro with more information and links to log lines to read for practice and things like this. Okay, I'm going to go back and open the floor to slasher pitches before we do logline stuff. All right, anyone have one besides IB? All right, IB, you have the floor.
Okay, after talented teens stumble into the lab of a benevolent doctor and are infected with a deadly virus, the doctor must use his medical tools to kill them before they escape and spread the virus.
Okay, great title. Let me read this one more time. Thank you for sharing this.
No problem.
Okay, so after talented teens stumble into the lab of a benevolent doctor and are infected with a deadly virus, the doctor must use his medical tools to kill them before they escape and spread the virus. Well, there's something that is really unignorably visceral about the stakes here, and I think you've done that really well. So I think that there is some phrasing, some oddness in the phrasing that are placing the emphasis in strange places to some extent. He must use medical tools to kill them. I understand that you're telling us sort of trying to hint at his tactics, but it's just not the most interesting part of what's going on here. It's Michael Myers must use a kitchen knife to kill the teens. It's that's what he's using, but we could be using your words on highlighting more of what is uniquely, specifically interesting about this story. So I'll get to that in just a second. To begin with, you've kind of placed the antagonists first, and that is confusing the focus. And talented teens, I'm sorry, just sounds like something from an adult movie. I don't know what that even means. That just sounds weirdly what are you talented at? What?
Well, the idea was that they all were they look like they're all going to go on to do something good, and so it's even more of a crushing blow that this guy he's a benevolent doctor had to kill these people with so much promise.
Oh,
but I thought promising.
So you just mean they have bright futures ahead of them?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
But I thought promising sounds even worse, so I went for talented.
But hang on, so is the fact that they're promising that really only it just makes it sadder? That doesn't have anything to do with the plot, though, right?
That is true.
Okay, so we like to start with the inciting incident, and that would imply that the adjective that you use to describe the character is directly relevant to what's going on here, perhaps linked to their motivation or linked to what their unique specific tactics or limitations or something like that. Does that make sense? How it just this phrasing is just leading the spotlight into the odd places. I get the story though, and I think there's a great way to express this. So why not frame this a little bit more from the doctor's point of view? So when are they thieves? You say they stumble in. Is this all just an accident? It's just a total accident, total coincidence?
Yeah, I think they probably were. I'd imagine that they're about to graduate and they've gone out into the woods and they've stumbled across this place and gone, oh, this is interesting, and gone into a given explore, and it's this lab kind of thing or something like that.
Okay, so is he on the verge of some kind of major breakthrough maybe, or is there some reason that we can highlight why this work is important, or what he's actually what is motivating your hero a little bit more?
Yeah, so there's this sort of virus that and he's trying to find a cure for it, and I think that he's probably maybe I think he wants to believe he's about a year out from finding the cure for it.
And is this virus one that has devastated the world already, or if he doesn't cure it, it will somehow get out on its own, or something like that?
I think it is one that has. I think it's probably going to be quite a personal one. I think it's killed someone close to him, but also probably more than just the person close to him, if that makes sense. But
okay.
It is something that sort of is out and about.
And why does he have it?
Because he's working on it. He's trying to come up with a cure for it.
Well, but is he the only one that has it, or is it out in the public?
That's a good point.
Because the stakes are very different in different situations.
Yeah. Well, maybe. How about this? Maybe he was working. This would change things completely. Maybe he was working at a government facility and then finds out that they're making a bioweapon, so he steals it to make a cure for it, so they can't release it on a civilian population.
Oh, wait, maybe he steals it to like destroy it then in that case, or find a way to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think he's stealing it to find a way to make a cure for it because he knows that he can't. They're going to release it sooner or later, but he wants to have a cure ready.
Okay.
And so that means it would be like he doesn't technically have the only version of it, but he has the only version of it that this might be the only way that it's let out, unless, yeah, I don't know.
But then if he hadn't taken it, then would it be at risk of getting out?
Yes, because they say the government facility that he was working at, they were going to I think maybe they were going to release it or something like that on a
in the U.S.
civilian population. Maybe not in the US. I don't know.
Yeah, that's okay. You don't have to have all the answers worked out. I guess I'm just trying to like drill down a little deeper to figure out the personal stakes for your hero, and I would highlight those and bring those to the front over the sort of just basic logistics of with what implement is he killing the characters. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so it can still like very much play out like a slasher, especially it's a little bit more like a thriller in terms of like the character motivations. You have such a reluctant slasher. It's almost like slashers almost always have an element of cruelty, sadism, or something like this to them. So it's kind of refreshing that he has none of that. That's actually what makes it kind of stand out, and I think that's part of what makes it really work here. But in building out the movie like that, you're building a scenario where we really want to feel sympathy for him, it would seem, right? Unless you're saying, does he like go crazy while he does this? Does he turn evil? Or is he just like sobbing as he has to slaughter these poor kids?
Well, I think he's a professional, so he might do it begrudgingly, but sort of at the same time, it's like, well, if I get upset, then I'll be sloppy about it, and he doesn't want to be sloppy about it because he feels like that will make it worse for them. I don't know.
Okay, so he maybe thinks of it as euthanizing lab rats or something like that?
Maybe a little bit like that.
Okay. Yeah, because the thing is, it just doesn't sound very scary for the audience exactly if we're following the slasher in this scenario. Does that make sense? Like, it's because you framed it from his point of view. It's tragic, and it's dramatic, but is it scary? But is it scary? Answer the question. Slap.
I don't know, maybe you could do weird psychedelic stuff to make it scary, where maybe he's taken he could have taken, whatchamacallit, he could have made a cure, or he could have worked on the cure, but the side effect is it messes with your mind, and so he has to take the cure so he doesn't get infected or hunting them down. But while he's infected, he's seeing all of these weird things, and maybe why he can't give them the cure is that so far he's only been able to make it specifically for him, so it only works on him currently.
Okay.
Perhaps.
There might be something there. I'd think about this. This does change things. It's a little bit like Hollow Man, if you saw that one, in that we are following this doctor who sort of starts to, be forced to either experiment on himself or prevent others from falling victim to his various experiments, like sci-fi experiments. There's some good bones here, but I think you maybe just need to zero in a little bit more on the emotional experience that you're trying to create, and also on the way that it ties to genre expectations, because we're talking slashers, right? And so I was evaluating this in terms of slashers. It does sound like a compelling horror thriller, and I would look into putting more of the highlight here on what makes this personal for your character and what makes it sort of represent his values in a way. Like if he was on the verge of curing the virus that had devastated humanity or something like this, and then they come in and they risk undoing all of that, it just has a different meaning for him and kind of allows us to invest in his journey in a different way rather than, I don't know, he's a rogue scientist who stole it versus he's the guy that created it in the first place. I would maybe sort of just try to sharpen that backstory, and then you can amplify how it informs your character.
Well, he could technically have gone through all three. He could have made it. It could have got out. They could have released it, and it killed a lot of people. And now he's stolen it because he doesn't want it to happen again.
Oh, okay. Maybe like it's quarantined there.
Yeah, maybe.
Could work. Cool. So, hope that helps. Any questions from you for now?
I don't think so.
All right. Anyone else want to weigh in on this slasher idea? Lenny has a suggestion. Go ahead.
So maybe instead of trying to make the killer dead scary, make the infection scary in a way.
That's possible too. Yep, we've seen zombies and 28 Days Later and things like this, but you can find maybe some new interesting thing that the virus itself does. Is that that's what you're suggesting, right?
Yeah.
That's a good idea. What do you think, IB?
I think it's something that I'm definitely considering, but I feel like if you're not careful, it's going to become too much of a reverse slasher kind of thing. I don't want it to be zombies because then it just becomes like a zombie survival thing and it stops being a slasher.
Right.
So maybe towards the end they could start transforming, but I think at the beginning there can't be anything like that, and it has to be more framed as a slasher. Maybe, I don't know. Sorry, but thank you for the suggestion.
It doesn't necessarily have to be about zombies. It could be like something more like original than zombies, or like make up a monster or something like that. Side effects of the virus.
That could work. Yep. Maybe it advances in stages like the Resident Evil T virus, and so you transform over time. It would definitely take it in more of a body horror direction than a slasher direction, but it would still be. I think it would still add up. We can wrap up with this one for now. Oh, does somebody else have a suggestion? Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned it before that if it was a sexually transmitted virus, it follows multiplied by 5.
That's true.
That would be interesting.
Right. Okay. That's on the table as well. Thank you for that idea. Let's wrap up with this one for now. I think I saw another one in the chat. Mario, do you have a slasher that you want to pitch us to?
Yeah, sure. On the verge of bankruptcy, an over-the-hill wunderkind must fool a sharp-eyed investor into believing his cosmetically modified escaped convict is a reverse-engineered Neanderthal, even if he has to cover up the convict's murderous habits.
Whoa. What? I think I need to hear that again. Let me read that out. This is very original sounding. It's just called the Neanderthal. Okay, great. And this is a slasher, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I love the idea of a slasher starring or like where the villain is some sort of, what do we call them, proto-human or like early hominid?
Yeah. Except it's just a escaped convict that he's cosmetically modified, and so in return for hiding him, he's just like pretending like he's the Neanderthal. So it's like pretend he couldn't crack it, right? And so he's cosmetically modifying this convict, except the convict has psychotic murderous habits.
Whoa, okay, hang on. I need to read this again. All right, on the verge of bankruptcy, an over-the-hill wunderkind must fool a sharp-eyed investor into believing his meaning the wunderkind?
The wunderkind. I wrote it fast.
Is he like a scientist? What is his job exactly?
Yeah, he's a geneticist.
Okay.
Wonderkin, like they replace Wonderkin with geneticist or something.
Okay, so on the verge of bankruptcy, like an out-of-work, over-the-hill geneticist must fool an investor into believing that his cosmetically modified escaped convict, he has a why does he have a convict? Is a reverse engineered Neanderthal. Go ahead.
Because the escaped convict breaks into his lab, and then he's like, okay, if I just modify your face a little bit, you accept it, right? And you pretend to be a Neanderthal, I will keep you hidden.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this.
So his it's like kind of the chicken Soros thing almost, where he says that his company can knows the genetic sequence to reverse a human into a Neanderthal, right? But he can't. And so when he has an escaped convict break into his lab, he's thinking, "Oh, I can just cosmetically change his features on his face, right? Using some kind of genetic sequencing, whatever mumbo jumbo, right? And now his face has those features, and the escaped convict will pretend to be a Neanderthal, right? Except the convict now has blackmail over him, and the convict has a psychotic tendencies and goes killing.
Oh,
It's a
okay,
slasher.
okay. I think
Yeah.
I think I get it. Let me just recap to make sure that I truly do.
Yeah.
But I think that something about the phrasing of this was just throwing me way off. I think by just reordering the information here, you can make this a little clearer. Let me see if I have it right. Okay. So there is a scientist who's running out of money. So he comes up with a scheme to make money.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And his get rich quick scheme is he breaks a convict out of jail or like secures a prisoner somehow.
Yes, he secures a prisoner somehow.
Okay, he gets a prisoner out of jail and gets that guy to agree to pretend to be a Neanderthal that he has discovered or unfrozen from the ice.
It's the project is a reverse engineer Neanderthal so that he can get funding. So he's pretending that he can reverse engineer a Neanderthal.
Reverse engineer meaning you can take
a human
and turn them into a Neanderthal?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So he takes this guy and convinces him to agree to pretend to be a person that has been turned into a Neanderthal?
Yes. Except this guy is a psychotic killer.
And he was that before this happened?
Yes.
And that took so many words and so much brain power for me to like even begin to wrap my head around. That's a lot of hoops to jump through to get to Neanderthal.
It might be easier just to do like kind of the Fly where he actually succeeds, and now this Neanderthal goes out and kills people.
Or how about, I mean, if you want to do a Neanderthal kills people, why not just do like a story where this is just, like you can answer this question why you don't want to do this. Maybe this is just too basic for you, or you think this would just be too predictable or something like that. But like scientists actually resurrect or create a Neanderthal. Maybe you're saying by devolving an existing person or something like that, and that turns them either the process awakens some evil in them, or they just were an evil Neanderthal that we've brought back and now they're killing people. Like, I mean, that's is that at the core of what this is? This is sort of like a slasher, like, I don't know, Predator, but with a Neanderthal killing people and stuff, right?
It's like Little Shop of Horror. I wanted to do a Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, it's a comedy?
No, it's not a comedy. It's just it's almost like Little Shop of Horrors where the plant actually can move and kill people, and Seymour has to kind of cover up the murders.
Oh, okay. So you don't mean the tone of Little Shop of Horrors. You mean the sort of My Pet Monster plot structure?
Yeah, it's kind of like that structure. Yeah.
Okay, no, I'm with you. I'm very familiar. I've written a couple of these. So I get what you mean, but it's just like such a strange way of these events coming together just to get us to a pretty clear, simple idea of there's a Neanderthal that's a slasher. I guess it just feels like so many hoops to jump through. It almost it's like a Rube Goldberg machine of insanity. Like, I'm just wondering why the stories feel so complicated.
Because there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving
Do there
parts.
need to be?
It doesn't. If it was a movie, I think in a movie I would probably make it simpler to just have a Neanderthal thing. But as you can see, like humans don't evolve from Neanderthals. Is in the comments, right? So I think I have the bones of it. I want to make it a little like I want to have a gut punch, like in the log line.
I was gonna say, if you're gonna go for like an early human-like creature, why not go all out? I think they were like giant. They found bones of giants. Why just not go all out and bring something like that?
Like put Nephilim in there.
Yeah, something crazy like that, because then it's even bigger. You could go all out.
You're talking about sort of proto-humans that have these like almost biblical connotations of like lost races and stuff like this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Maybe there's something there if you like that.
Yeah.
There are some interesting. I mean, that at a certain point could almost be like a Sasquatch movie. That's a whole like subgenre of creature feature, mostly on the Sci-Fi Channel.
And it works with the science because you really can't genetically modify a human. You can genetically modify an embryo, and so that works a little bit better.
Okay, well maybe there's something there, but I do like the basic bones of the Neanderthal slasher. It does remind me of what's that Scooby-Doo episode where where's the caveman? That was also a movie called Iceman in the 80s. I think was that what it was called? Sort of explored a similar idea of what if we unthawed an ancient caveman.
I was also I'm not sure.
Go ahead, Abby.
So I'm not sure. I can't find any mention of this, but I think if I remember correctly, the horror film Carry On Screaming, the Mad Doctor has brought early human-like creatures to life and got them to do his bidding for him, and they're sort of bigger and taller than early man. And there was also a Lauren Hardy short film where they had they were cleaning the chimney of a mad scientist, and he falls in and ends up becoming a monkey because he gets devolved. So just things where similar things have happened in already. I just put them as comps.
De-evolution.
So this is actually interesting that I actually really like the Nephilim concept a little bit better, where it's a little bit simpler. So it becomes a Frankenstein almost comp. It's a lot easier to write almost.
That sounds cool. I've never seen that depicted in a movie, I don't think. All right. Good luck with that. That sounds awesome. Let's go into loglines, and I have a just crushing headache out of nowhere. Give me a second. I'm going to just drink some water. Nacho, are you here? Oh, maybe he stepped away. That's okay. I'll check back when he's back. They might need him on standby to take over for a few minutes. I just got like super dizzy. Okay. So, loglines. This is the answer to the question, what is your movie about? So it's going to distill that to about one single sentence that is usually going to be formatted like this sort of template that we showed here. It doesn't always have to fit exactly into this template, but this is just a good place to start, and these are the questions that we should be essentially answering. So, when or after inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict before stakes. Nacho's asking if I'm okay. Just my headache came back. It just like came out of nowhere, just smashed into me. I'm good. I will keep going if I can. So log lines are important because they help keep you on track for the writing process of your story, and they also help us in the early stages of outlining, which is what today's topic is going to be if I can get through it. The specific definitions here for a second, and then we're going to look at some more slides. So we're going to start with inciting incident. And that's going to be the events that kick off your story. The first domino to fall. It's not always the very first scene, and sometimes it would make sense to think of the very first scene as the inciting incident because it sets events in motion that will come to cause the story of the movie to happen. But that said, your cold open is almost never going to be the same as that inciting incident. The cold open is just kind of like a preview or a teaser of things to come, and we usually afterwards are going to settle into what we might call the normal world, or the act one of your story. And it's only after living in that world for a little bit does the true inciting incident happen. So you can think of the Stranger Things type creature feature. The opening scene of the scientist getting chased and eaten by the monster is not the inciting incident. That is, in fact, just a teaser of what is to come. We then settle into the normal lives of these kids that live in this neighborhood, and then until, one day, their friend gets kidnapped by that monster. That's our inciting incident. So that's usually going to look like when their friend is kidnapped by a monster, whatever it is, a misfit, what are we going to say? Football player, an overly defensive soccer mom. We have you're just going to pick an adjective or something that expresses who the character is in terms that connect them to the story or make it feel relevant. Like, why are we following this person? Does it inform the tactic that they use or the limitations that they face? We're facing, a psychopathic arsonist, or maybe we're following somebody that has some kind of contradiction that's highlighted by that adjective, like, a compassionate executioner. That could sound like an interesting basis for a story, right? So think of that adjective as a useful spot to tell us something key about this narrative. Don't waste your adjective on something obvious or something we could have guessed. A strong soldier, like, why would you even bother? Like, if we expect a detective to be determined, you don't need to say a determined detective, right? Or a protective mother. Like, well, I understand not every mother is, but it doesn't inform us of anything really to say that a mother is protective in a story if we only have one word to describe somebody. Does that make sense? So, like, try to pick don't waste your adjective. Don't throw it away on something that doesn't do much for us in terms of the hook. The hook is telling us what's interesting about this specific version of these, like, genre expectations. Because so much of what we're doing is trying to fulfill and make good on genre expectations and promises by delivering the type of story that people have signed up for that's going to make them feel the way they want to feel, but it's going to deliver that in a different, new kind of way that we haven't exactly gotten before. We haven't seen this exact package of events before. Something familiar and about this idea. So the conflict is going to tell us basically the type and scale of action that we're going to be facing. So a character must fight his way to the top of a castle is going to be a very different type of movie than a character must prove his innocence in court, right? So it's going to be telling us what sort of scenes to imagine in the middle of the movie, the second act, which basically we say is the movie. And then stakes is going to tell us what it stands to be gained or lost. Now let's go into stakes for a minute. Why is it important to establish stakes carefully, and why do stakes matter? Any volunteers? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, if the main character doesn't care, like, why would we care?
Yeah, that's a good point. The stakes are kind of the answer to that question. Why does the main character care? Or it informs why the main character cares, because it highlights what they stand to gain or lose. If it's a story where the character doesn't stand to gain or lose anything that matters to them, then the note you'll often hear is inconsequential. What does it kind of mean when you think of a story that's inconsequential?
Something that it's almost like there's no point in watching it because there's no consequences. We don't feel the immersion, and we won't be invested with any of the characters.
Yeah, inconsequential.
And there'll be no conflict.
There's no consequence. After watching this, even if I was amused, I don't feel any differently. There's a big difference between just watching like a series of cutscenes that fulfill on genre promises and watching a story that actually sticks with people and they remember after it's done. Like, our goal is to write things that are different and memorable, not just ones that follow the plot beats exactly. Like, we want to deliver on the promises, but deliver on them in some new way that illuminates something people haven't thought of before. A story that feels like it is of consequence. So to that end, the stakes need to kind of be defined and clear to us, and they ideally are something that we can understand. it doesn't have to be something we can directly relate to, but something that we can at least get somebody else wanting. If the stakes pertain to goals or motivations that we can't possibly get behind, then you are kind of at risk of losing the audience's investment unless we can find like somebody else to attach. If we have to find at least somebody to attach to in the narrative and some change that we want to see made and some progress that we want to see play out. But stories that don't really have clear stakes are just not compelling to us and don't grab us. In fact, in doing research recently for, I'm considering writing a book, like a short series or something like this, maybe a pilot, set during the War of 1812. Now, the War of 1812 was 2 years long, and like something like 30,000 people died, and the White House got burned at the end. And you would think there's a lot of drama there, but there's like no movies about it, and there's not that many stories told about it. Why is that? Digging into it, I think the main reason why is that the stakes are just not clear. It's over maritime disputes involving the British pressing sailors into service to use them in the Napoleonic Wars, and would that have been key to their victory in the Napoleonic Wars? I don't know. It also had to do with certain trade disputes and the British sort of interrupting American trade on its way to Europe. But that's hard to quantify in modern terms because we don't know the numbers that are tied to any of those like calculations. Think of that compared to something like World War II or the Revolutionary War, where it's like, what's at stake? The survival of the world or our country, like existentially? Does this make sense how like stakes matter in terms of stories? Because this is what grabs us. We have to know kind of what stands to be gained or lost, or else it feels like, what was the point? Who cares? And also, I will say, War of 1812, inconclusive ending at the end. The Treaty of Ghent did not even address pressing the sailors into service, so basically they just didn't need them anymore, so nothing changed, no territory was gained or lost, and pretty much only a lot of people died for no reason.
I think there was a TV series around that kind of premise called Taboo, and it was with Tom Hardy.
Yeah, it was on FX. I didn't watch it. I don't know I did not know it was set during that period.
I think so, because it was them all trying to get him to sign over land when the borders get all cut up.
Oh, I see. Yeah, a lot of Americans were hoping. This is such a digression. I just am like, we just want to talk about something I was reading about now. But a lot of Americans hope to annex Canada as a result of the war. Anyway, okay. So moving on from fun history facts, let's get back to loglines. We have a question in the chat I see as well. Is there different types of stakes? So, yes, there's internal and external stakes, and internal stakes are sort of pertaining to your character's reputation and how they see themselves and fit into the world. And external stakes pertain more to their survival, their amount of material goods, their wealth, their physical well-being, things like this. So we have external goals that are tied to external stakes, and internal goals are tied to internal stakes. A character that is a rich old miser, his external stakes might be, I need to escape from this prison, but his internal stakes might be, I need to learn to share, or I need to learn to be generous. So yes, those are the two major types of stakes. Nacho mentions Phantom Menace had the same problem of unclear stakes to the war. Yeah, like a trade dispute that is being engineered between the Federation of Planets that Naboo happens to be in, but they're not like the boss of all of them. So it becomes there's so many moving pieces that were like added to that Star Wars kind of paradigm of the dark side versus the light side, that you're right. It became hard to tell what really mattered and what to care that much about. Okay, question. What stakes do you include in the logline? Well, you're kind of trying to hint at both. We're writing the external stakes in such a way that implies what internal journey your character will go on. So that's why you're picking your adjective carefully, perhaps to say, like, an alcoholic detective must hunt down a bootlegger, and maybe we kind of understand by the end he will have conquered or overcome his internal problem by overcoming the external problem. So you're trying to answer both of those questions in whatever way you can. I know that's tough. Any other questions on loglines before we continue? Okay. Nacho, if you're able to take over,
Sure.
thank you so much for doing that. I'm just struggling
No.
in the head.
No problem.
Thank you for your help here. And I can come back towards the end too if there's folks still looking to get feedback on their log lines in the last couple minutes.
Yeah, just give us a second to switch over the stream. But yeah, if Connor's feeling okay, he'll come back and join and maybe have some feedback on your log lines and story ideas.
How do we do that?
So I think we'll just have to end the public stream and then I'll just start streaming to the channel.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
And we can do like an audio recording.
Okay, that works. All right, then. In that case, let's just wrap up the public recording for the moment. This was just a short preview video of the sort of stuff we do, I suppose. But we will continue this class on Discord, so definitely do come by our Discord channel, which you can find the link to at scriptcamp.net. You can either purchase a class on its own, so a whole course at scriptcamp.net/classes, or you can just sign up for unlimited membership, which is just $19 a month if you buy yearly. And that is going to give you full access to every class, every workshop, every event on all of our different servers, which include Script Camp for screenwriting, Word Camp for novel writing, Film Camp for filmmaking, Code Camp for coding, Game Camp, game design, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. We have plenty of stuff going on. Almost every day of the week, we have plenty of events, script swaps, readings, workshops, and other fun things like this. Come join our community. You could start a group, a genre group, or something dedicated to a topic that you are interested in. Start a writing group, join a writing group. And we will be wrapping up for the moment, but if you come by in the next hour, then you can join our class live and interactive on Discord. Again, scriptcamp.net. You'll get the link to join our Discord server called ScriptCamp, which is our main hub at the moment until we get our new website. Okay, anything else to say, Nacho?
No, that's all. We'll go ahead and...
Well, I'm glad I used my remaining brain power on talking about the War of 1812. I'm sure that really bagged us some new subscribers there. All right. Well, I will end this stream then, and we will continue these courses. This class has 6 weeks left. Wait, or is this week 1? 7 weeks left. So you will write the rest of your entire feature, whether it's a slasher or anything else, in this same class, Fridays from 6 to 8 Pacific time.